asked. Rivers made it out for one of his pistols, an English flintlock pocket pistol. I can show you one almost like it up front. He'd gotten it and 3 others back in 1938 in trade for a Kentucky rifle. The numbers are reference numbers. The letters are Rivers' private price code. Those 3 at the end are, respectively, what he absolutely had to get for it, what he thought was a reasonable price, and the most he thought the traffic would stand. He sold it in 1942 for his middle price. There was another flash by the door, then Kavaalen called out, "Hey, Mick, we got 2 of the stiffs now. All right if we pull out the bayonet for a close-up of his chest?" "Sure. Better chalkline it first, you'll move things jerking that bayonet out." He turned back to Rand. "You think, then, that maybe some card in that file would have gotten somebody in trouble, and he had to croak Rivers to get it, and then burn the rest of the cards for a cover-up?" "That's the way it looks to me," Rand agreed. "Just because I can't think of any other possibilities, though, doesn't mean there aren't any others." "Hey, you think he might have been selling modern arms to criminals without reporting the sale?" McKenna asked. "I wouldn't put it past him," Rand considered. "There was very little that I would put past that fellow. But I wouldn't think he'd be stupid enough to carry a record of such sales in his own file, though." McKenna rubbed the butt of his .38 reflectively. That seemed to be his substitute for head-scratching, as an aid to cerebration. "You said you were here yesterday and bought a pistol," he began. "All right, I know about that collection of yours, but why were you back here bright and early this morning? You working on Rivers for somebody? If so, give." Rand told him what he was working on. "Rivers wants to buy the Fleming collection. That was the reason I saw him yesterday. But the reason I came here this morning is that I find that somebody has stolen about 2 dozen of the best pistols out of the collection since Fleming's death, and tried to cover up by replacing them with some junk that Lane Fleming wouldn't have allowed inside his house. For my money, it's the butler. Now that Fleming's dead, he's the only one in the house who knows enough about arms to know what's worth stealing. He has constant access to the gunroom. I caught him in a lie about a book Fleming kept a record of his collection in, and now the book has vanished. And furthermore, and most important, if he'd been on the level, he would have spotted what was going on long ago and squawked about it." "That's a damn good circumstantial case, Jeff," McKenna nodded. "Nothing you could take to a jury, of course, but mighty good grounds for suspicion. You think Rivers could have been the fence?" "He could have been. Whoever was high-grading the collection had to have an outlet for his stuff, and he had to have a source of supply for the junk he was infiltrating into the collection as replacements. A crooked dealer is the answer to both, and Arnold Rivers was definitely crooked." "You know that?" McKenna inquired. "For sure?" Another flash lit the front of the shop. Rand nodded. "For damn good and sure. I can show you 6 firearms in this shop that have been altered to increase their value. I don't mean legitimate restorations, I mean fraudulent alterations." He went on to tell McKenna about Rivers' expulsion from membership in the National Rifle Association. "And I know that he sold a pair of pistols to Lane Fleming about a week before Fleming was killed that were outright fakes. Fleming was going to sue the ears off Rivers about that. The fact is, until this morning, I'd been wondering if that might have been why Fleming had that sour-looking accident. If he'd lived, he'd have run Rivers out of business." "Hell, I didn't know that!" McKenna seemed worried. "Fleming used to target shoot with our gang, and he knew too much about gats to pull a Russ Columbo on himself. I didn't like that accident at the time, but I figured he'd pulled the Dutch, and the family were making out it was an accident. We never were called in. The whole thing was handled through the coroner's office." "You really think Fleming could have been bumped?" "Yes, I think he could have been bumped," Rand understated. "I haven't found any positive proof, but—" He told McKenna about his purchase from Rivers, of the revolver that had been later identified as the one brought home by Fleming on the day of his death. "I still don't know how Rivers got a hold of it," he continued. "Until I walked in here not half an hour ago and found Rivers dead on the floor, I'd had a suspicion that Rivers might have sneaked into the Fleming house shot Fleming with another revolver, left it in Fleming's hand, and carried away the one Fleming had been working on. The motive, of course, would have been to stop a lawsuit that would have put Rivers out of business, and, not inconceivably, in jail. But now... He looked toward the front of the shop, where another photo flash glared for an instant. And don't suggest that Rivers got conscience-stricken and killed himself. Aside from the technical difficulties of pinning himself to the floor after he was dead, that explanation's out. Rivers had no conscience to be stricken with. "Well, let's skip Fleming for a minute," McKenna suggested. "You think this butler at the Fleming place was robbing the collection? And you say he could have sold the stuff he stole to Rivers. Well, when the family gets you in to work on the collection, Jeeves, or whatever his name is, realizes that you're going to spot what's been going on, and will probably suspect him. He knows you're no ordinary arms expert. You're an agency dick. So he gets scared. If you catch up with Rivers, Rivers'll talk. So he comes over here last night and kills Rivers off before you can get to him. And while Rivers may not keep a record of the stuff he's got from Jeeves, or whatever his name is—" "Walters," Rand replied. "Walters, then. While he may not keep a record of what he bought from Walters, the chances are he does keep a record of the stuff Walters got from him, to use for replacements. So the card file goes into the fire. How's that?" The flare of another flashbulb made distorted shadows dance over the walls. "That would hang together now," Rand agreed. "Of course, I haven't found anything here except the revolver I bought yesterday that came from the Fleming place. But I'll add this. As soon as Rivers found out I was working on the Fleming family, he tried to get that revolver back from me, offered me $75 worth of credit on anything else in the shop if I'd give it back to him. Not 20 minutes after I'd paid him $60 for it." "See?" McKenna pounced. "Look, suppose you had a lot of hot stuff in a place like this. You might take a chance on selling something that had gotten mixed in with your legitimate stuff, but would you want to sell it right back to where it had been stolen from?" "No, I wouldn't. And if I were a butler who'd been robbing a valuable collection, and an agency man moved in and started poking around, I might get in a panic and do something extreme. That all hangs together, too." While Rand was talking to McKenna, Private Jameson wandered back through the shop. "Hey, Sarge, is there any way to get into the house from here?" he asked. "The outside doors are all locked, and I can't raise anybody." Rand pointed out the flight of steps beside the fireplace. "I saw Rivers come out of the house that way yesterday," he said. The state policeman went up the steps and tried the door. It opened, and he went through. "Chances are Mrs. Rivers is away," McKenna said. "She's away a lot. They have a colored girl who comes in by the day, but she doesn't generally get here before noon. And the clerk doesn't get here till about the same time." "You seem to know a lot about this household," Rand said. "Yeah, we have this place marked up as a bad burglary and stick-up hazard. We keep an eye on it. Rivers has all these guns, he does a big cash business, he always has a couple of $100 to $1,000 on him. It's a wonder somebody hasn't made a try at this place long ago. Tell you what, Jeff, say you check up on this butler at the Fleming place for us, and we'll check up here and see if we can find any of the stuff that was stolen. We can get together and compare notes. Maybe one or another of us may run across something about that accident of Fleming's, too." "Suits me. I'll be glad to help you, and I'll be glad for any help that you can give me in recovering those pistols. I haven't made any formal report on that yet, because I'm not sure exactly what's missing, and I don't want any of that kind of publicity while I'm trying to sell the collection. It may be that the two matters are related. There are some points of similarity which may or may not mean anything. And, of course, I just may find somebody who'll make it worth my time to get interested in this killing while I'm at it." McKenna chuckled. "That must hurt hell out of you, Jeff," he said. "A nice, classy murder like this, and nobody to pay you to work on it." "It does," Rand admitted. "I feel like an undertaker watching a man being swallowed by a shark." "You want to stick around till this clerk of Rivers gets here?" McKenna asked. "He should be here in about an hour and a half." "No, I'd just as soon not be seen taking too much of an interest in this right now. Fact is, I'd just as soon not have my name mentioned at all in connection with this. You can charge the discovery of the body up to our old friend Anonymous Tip, can't you?" "Sure.